Arturo Gatti captured hearts with gutsy battles and a warrior's heart. But his life ended in mystery. Now, in a heartbreaking echo of the past, his 17-year-old son has been found dead in a way that mirrors the tragedy of the father. Today, we explore Gatti's rise, his demons, and urgent lessons about mental health starting from the roots. Arturo Gatti was born April 15, 1972, in Montreal, Canada, a son of Italian immigrants. Growing up with grit and dreams, he moved to New Jersey in his teens, trading the quiet Canadian life for harder streets and tougher competition. Boxing became his escape, his voice, his destiny. From early amateur fights to turning pro in 1991, Gatti earned a reputation not just for power, but for heart. He was a brawler with a boxer's spirit, willing to take shots, give shots, and fight until his last breath. His moniker, Thunder, was earned in blood, sweat, and epic wars. He climbed the ranks, capturing the IBF junior lightweight title in 1995, defending it multiple times, and later winning the WBC super lightweight crown. His fights weren't just contests, they were stories. Every punch, every retreat, every comeback fed his legend. But as his fame grew, so did the pressure. The underdog label, the expectation to keep thrilling, to be the war horse for fans. Behind closed doors, many suspected Gatti carried burdens the public couldn't see. What no one saw yet was how darkness can live in the heart of the most blazing fighter. If you ask any fight fan about Arturo Gatti, they'll name one thing above all else: heart. His trilogy with Mickey Ward is boxing folklore. Ward versus Gatti, 3 wars of attrition, where both fighters poured blood and willpower into those rings. Some rounds are considered among the greatest ever, but that's not all. Gatti tangled with legends: Oscar de la Hoya, Floyd Mayweather, and more. He lost some, won others, but always left his soul in the ring. His style was chaotic, explosive, entertaining, rarely clean, always daring. Crowds loved him because he fought like he had nothing to lose. His right hand, his body shots, and his ability to absorb pain made him a fan favorite. Even when trailing, he roared back. His nickname Thunder wasn't just for his power, it was for the storm he brought. Yet every war takes its toll. Scars, injuries, close calls. The physical cost was visible, but the emotional cost hidden. As his ring success mounted, so did whispers of internal storms he couldn't punch away. Outside the ring, Arturo Gatti was complicated. He possessed charm, confidence, charisma. He was beloved by fans, media, and neighbors. But friends recall cracks, moments when sadness weighed heavier than his fists. Gatti had financial struggles. He made tough decisions. He had relationships strained by travel, fame, expectations. He was a father to his son, Arturo Jr., born in 2008. But the pressures of boxing legacy loomed over their home. Some insiders report Gatti had moments of depression, exhaustion, mental strain. The constant demand to be electrifying, to never fade, to always deliver, that pressure crushes more than it inspires. Many fighters talk about speaking in the ring because life outside is silent. Gatti seemed to carry that truth. And then came 2009, the turning point, the mystery, the tragedy nobody could ignore. Because when a man fights monsters outside the ring, sometimes the monster inside wins. July 11, 2009, Porto de Galinhas, Brazil. Arturo Gatti was found dead in a seaside apartment where he was vacationing with his wife, Amanda Rodriguez, and their baby son, barely a year old at the time. News broke like a thunderclap. Arturo Thunder Gatti dead at 37. Initial reports claimed suicide, that Gatti had hanged himself with a strap, but friends, family, and fans didn't believe it. He had just retired, had money in the bank, a young child, and plans to train fighters. His family in Montreal demanded answers. Within weeks, Brazilian authorities reopened the case as a homicide investigation, with Amanda arrested, then later released when the case was closed again as suicide. Confusion, anger, disbelief. The autopsy left more questions than answers. Theories bloomed, from foul play to depression. Some pointed to head trauma sustained over years of brutal fights. Others said it was despair from a turbulent marriage. Nothing was proven. The one undeniable fact: boxing had lost one of its most beloved warriors, and a 1-year-old boy had lost his father. That boy, Arturo Gatti Jr., would grow up under the long, painful shadow of that mystery. And as the years passed, the echoes of that tragedy would grow louder. Because some stories don't end, they echo until someone else becomes the sound. Growing up as Arturo Gatti Jr. meant inheriting both a name and a ghost. Born into boxing royalty but haunted by loss, Yes, Junior was raised in Montreal and often shielded from the public eye by his mother. But you can't escape a legend, especially when your father's death is one of the sport's most haunting mysteries. As a teen, Junior started boxing, not for fame, but connection. Those close to him said he trained to understand his father, to find peace in the same rhythm of gloves and canvas that made his dad immortal. Videos surfaced of him shadowboxing, quiet, disciplined, eerily reminiscent of his father's stance. He had the look, the movement, even the same calm before throwing a jab. But behind the focus, there was weight, the kind only children of legends know. Fans would message him constantly, "You're going to be Thunder 2.0. Others compared him before he ever fought professionally. That kind of expectation can be a prison, especially for someone still forming an identity. Friends said Junior was polite, humble, and quiet, but at times withdrawn. He carried the burden of his father's legacy while still grappling with his own story. Then came the news no one expected, history repeating itself in the cruelest way possible. Because this week, the son of Arturo Gatti was found under circumstances hauntingly similar to his father's. On October 6, 2025, headlines once again shook the boxing world. Arturo Gatti Jr., son of the late boxing legend, found dead at 17. According to reports from People, MMA Mania, and The Economic Times, Jr. was discovered while on vacation with his mother. Details are still emerging, but sources say the scene mirrored his father's death. Found unresponsive, questions swirling, grief unimaginable. Fans across the world reacted in shock. "Not again," one Reddit user wrote. "How can one family carry so much pain?" Others revisited old clips of Gatti Sr.'s fights, posting side-by-side photos of father and son, two faces linked by tragedy. Officials have not released a final cause of death. Investigations are ongoing, but what is clear is that another young life, bright, hopeful, burdened by legacy, has been lost far too soon. As tributes pour in, fighters and fans alike are using this moment to highlight what's often ignored: the toll of emotional trauma and mental health in combat sports families. It's not just the fighters who suffer, it's the people who live in their echoes. Because behind every highlight reel, every knockout, every roar of the crowd, there are moments of silence where the pain lives. And if there's one lesson in both Gattis' stories, it's this: silence kills too. When news of Arturo Gatti Jr.'s death broke, it felt less like a headline and more like déjà vu, as if the universe had cruelly hit rewind. Two lives, father and son, separated by 16 years, yet linked by eerily similar endings. Fans who once wept for Thunder now found themselves reliving the nightmare. Old rivals like Mickey Ward posted tributes, remembering the father as the toughest man I ever knew. Now, they grieved for a boy who never had the chance to write his own story. The boxing world, normally loud and brash, went silent. You could feel the heaviness in every post, every interview. Even younger fighters, the social media generation, paused their self-promotion to share mental health helplines and stories of their own struggles. People began asking bigger questions. Was this tragedy avoidable? Could the psychological scars of one generation quietly wound the next? Experts say yes. Children who grow up surrounded by trauma, instability, or unresolved grief can inherit invisible burdens, pain they didn't create but still carry. For the Gatti family, legacy was both a gift and a curse. The name opened doors, but also reopened wounds. Every time Junior stepped into a gym, he faced ghosts. Every photo of his father was both inspiration and reminder of the abyss fame can hide. The echo of Thunder had become thunder itself, deafening, impossible to outrun. Behind every fighter's roar is silence, and in that silence, too many lose their way. Arturo Gatti Sr. lived through wars that didn't end with the final bell. Experts have long suggested that repeated head trauma, post-career isolation, and emotional strain can create a dangerous cocktail of depression and impulsivity. For his son, the battles weren't physical but psychological, growing up with questions no one could answer. After Junior's passing, mental health professionals in Canada and Brazil urged the boxing community to confront what it often avoids: vulnerability. The truth is, combat athletes are trained to suppress pain, to fight through fear, to never admit weakness. But that mindset doesn't switch off outside the ring. When the crowd goes home, the bravado collapses, leaving only the echo of applause. Organizations like the Ring of Hope Foundation and Talk for Sport began calling for routine counseling for young athletes. Promoters discussed mandatory post-fight therapy. Commentators finally used airtime to say the words fighters often dread: "It's okay to need help." Because if the story of the Gattis proves anything, it's that strength without support becomes self-destruction. The cycle can only break when fighters, and the fans who idolize them, learn that courage isn't silence. It's speaking before the silence wins. Today, Today, both Arturos rest in different corners of history, father and son united by love, legend, and loss. Yet even in tragedy, their story sparks something vital: awareness. Conversations about grief, masculinity, and mental health are now louder than ever, and that noise might save lives the way the crowd once saved theirs. Fans gather online not just to mourn, but to talk about anxiety, about therapy, about calling friends before it's too late. Trainers are setting aside time to check in with fighters between rounds of training, not for technique, but for well-being. Slowly, the sport is learning that the strongest punch isn't the one that lands, it's the one that reaches out. For every young athlete chasing greatness, the Gatti story stands as both warning and guide. Your worth isn't measured by titles or toughness. It's measured by how willing you are to stay alive, to ask for help, to choose light when darkness whispers louder. If you or someone you know is struggling, please reach out to a friend, to a counselor, or to your local mental health helpline. No victory is worth your life. Arturo Gatti fought until the end. His son tried to find peace in the same fire. Maybe their legacy, beyond belts and blood, is the reminder that every fighter, every person, deserves a corner that listens. The thunder may fade, but the message remains. You are never alone.